In the vaulted, silent sanctum of the Galactic Council, a judgment was being passed, not in fire and fury, but in the cold, elegant cruelty of bureaucratic procedure. The great circular table, a relic of 10,000 years of peaceful hegemony, cradled the assembled representatives of 12 starfaring species. Their forms, crystalline, chitinous, gaseous, silken, cast strange, shifting shadows under the sterile blue-white lights, a parliament of nightmares and wonders. At the heart of their quiet debate lay a single, burning question: what to do with the newcomers, the upstarts, the humans? Ambassador Vex of the Altari leaned forward, the light catching the liquid mercury of his skin. For 6 months they have sat among us. His voice, translated into a dozen sensory formats, was a silken blade. 6 months, and already their ambassadors speak not of gratitude, but of equity. They demand voting weight. They demand trade pacts on favorable terms. They speak of military cooperation, as if their primitive patrol ships could augment our fleets. He let the audacity of it hang in the air, a poisonous bloom. They have forgotten their station. Like, subscribe, share, and comment below to join us on this incredible journey of survival and transformation. Counselor Thrax of the Kree, his insectoid mandibles clicking a staccato rhythm of disdain, chimed in. Their origin world is listed as Class 7 on the Habitability Index. A gentle garden, soft skies, tame seasons, forgiving biosphere. Our cradles are Class 3, glacial hellscapes, volcanic arcs, radiation-bathed oceans. We earned our place through eons of struggle against the genuinely hostile. They grew in a nursery, and yet they strut into this chamber with the arrogance of ancient powers. The debate spiraled, a vortex of condescension and thinly veiled anxiety. Some advocated for benign neglect, letting humanity languish in ceremonial roles for a century or 3. Others proposed restrictive trade quotas, a gentle economic leash. But Vex had conceived a more elegant, more final solution. He rose, his motion fluid and unsettling. I propose we grant them exactly what they seek, he announced, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. A chance to prove their mettle, to demonstrate the rugged spirit they claim as their birthright. Let us offer them a colony rights charter for Corath Prime. The silence that followed was absolute, profound, as if the chamber itself had taken a sharp breath. Corath Prime, a name spoken in hushed tones in academy lecture halls and military briefings. The pinnacle of the galactic danger scale, Class 15, but Deathworld in the purest, most unforgiving sense. 3 previous expeditions, the hardy Vrex, the proud Zephyrans, the durable silicon-based Rocklings, had ventured there, armed with the galaxy's finest technology and unwavering resolve. None had lasted a standard week. The Vrex colonists were reduced to biological slurry by acidic rainfall in 4 days. The Zephyrans' automated beacons wailed their distress for 48 hours before falling silent. The Rocklings, who could subsist on mineral deposits and withstand volcanic pressures, had retreated, half their number pulverized by the planet's tectonic tantrums. Elder Nera of the Symphons, her form a cascade of gentle harmonic vibrations, pulsed with distress. Ambassador, that is not an opportunity. It is a death sentence. The gravity alone would crush a human's fragile skeleton. The atmosphere is a cocktail of corrosive toxins. The storms can flay a starship's hull. Precisely, Vex replied. a cold, geometric smile appearing on his features. They boast of surviving their wars and hardships on their gentle world. Let them confront a universe that is genuinely, creatively hostile. Let their pride meet the absolute indifference of a world that does not care for their ambition. He tapped a control, and holographic dossiers of the failed expeditions flickered above the table. Grainy footage of dissolving shelters, frantic final transmissions, geological scans showing landscapes that moved like living predators. Our most optimistic simulations grant them a 2% survival rate beyond the first week. They will perish quickly, or they will flee, broken and humbled. In either case, the human question will be settled, permanently. The vote was tense, closer than Vext had anticipated. Driven by a minority who felt the scheme veered too close to genocide. But it passed. The resolution was framed in glittering diplomatic language, a charter of proving, an honor for a promising new species to demonstrate its resilience and claim a world of immense strategic potential. The subtext, clear to every being in the chamber, was a sneer. Go and die, and spare us the trouble of taking you seriously. 3 weeks later, aboard the colony vessel Determination, Captain Elias Reed stared at the mission brief as if it were a ghost. The data streamed across his tablet, planetary metrics that read like a catalog of divine wrath. Gravity, 1.8 G. Atmospheric composition, breathable, if one considered breathing a cocktail of sulfuric compounds, chlorine derivatives, and organic toxins, breathable. Temperature variance, -30 degrees Celsius to 120 degrees Celsius within a single planetary rotation. Weather systems included perpetual electromagnetic superstorms and precipitation that was literally hydrofluoric acid. They've given us a world that's actively trying to commit suicide and take us with it, muttered Chief Engineer Eris Mills, his calloused hands gripping a console, as he scanned the schematics of their generously provided equipment. Captain, this gear, it's reliable, I'll give them that. It's also 3 generations obsolete. The shielding on these habitat modules wouldn't last a day in that soup. Dr. Anya Stone, the expedition xenobiologist, looked up from her spectrometer, her eyes not fearful, but ablaze with a scientist's hungry curiosity. The biodiversity scans are unprecedented. Carnivorous flora with motile root systems, fauna with biomass readings larger than our shuttle. Energy signatures suggest bioelectrical and acidic projectile capabilities. It's not just hostile, it's innovatively hostile. Reed, a man whose face was a map of quiet competence etched by solar winds and hard decisions, felt a cold knot form in his gut. This wasn't generosity. It was theater, a beautifully staged execution. His suspicions crystallized when Comms Officer Lang spoke up. "Sir, I've got a signature tailing us. A Council observation vessel, the Azure Witness, holding at extreme sensor range, but matching our velocity exactly. Observers," Mills spat the word, "vultures. They're here to write the post-mortem." Reed looked around the bridge, then beyond, through the bulkhead to the humming life of the ship. 500 souls, not soldiers, but a mosaic of humanity. Engineers like Mills, dreamers like Dr. Stone, farmers with soil samples from Iowa, mechanics from Martian orbital docks, teachers, artists, children with wide eyes full of stars. They had all seen the data. They had all chosen to come anyway. That reckless, glorious, terrifying human willingness to leap into the abyss, just to see what was at the bottom. "How long, Hayes?" Reed asked his navigator. 18 hours to orbital insertion, Captain." Reed stood, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "Then we have 18 hours to prepare for a fight. Not just against a planet, but against an expectation. They think they're sending us to a grave. Our job is to build a home in it. Dr. Stone, I want every scrap of data on those predators, cross-referenced with Earth's extreme biomes. Deep ocean vents, radioactive ruins, anything. Find a pattern, a weakness, a precedent. Mills, assume every system will fail. Build redundancies for the redundancies. Lang, keep a passive lock on that observer. I want to know if they so much as twitch." As the crew sprang into action, Reed walked the corridors. He saw a young couple calibrating a hydroponic unit, their heads bent together. He passed a group of children in a makeshift classroom, learning about Corath's poisonous flora with the same excitement as a field trip to a zoo. He saw the steady hands of a surgeon checking instrument seals. This was not a group facing annihilation. This was a community, stubborn and hopeful, traveling toward a future. The Council, in its ancient calcified wisdom, had made a critical error. They saw the danger of Corath Prime. They did not see the opportunity. And they fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the creature they were trying to humble. The determination plunged toward the swirling emerald and violet marble of Corath Prime. In its wake, aboard the Azure Witness, Ambassador Vex sipped a delicate infusion and watched the telemetry on a wall of screens. "Begin the memorial recording," he instructed his aide, Kess. "Note the time. The human experiment enters its terminal phase." On the surface, the planet welcomed them with its particular brand of fury. Shuttle Alpha bucked through an atmosphere that tore at its seams. The first thing to hit was the smell, a penetrating metallic rot that seeped past environmental filters. Then the turbulence, slamming colonists into harnesses. Finally, the impact, a jarring crash that announced their arrival in hell. Reed unstrapped and lurched to a viewport. The landscape was a Goya painting brought to life. Twisted, phosphorescent mineral spires, black ground that seemed to swallow the light. A sky bruised purple and green by constant electrical discharge. Before he could issue an order, Dr. Stone's voice crackled over the comm, tight with controlled alarm. "Captain, movement. Multiple large biosigns converging. Converging fast." A thunderous impact rocked the shuttle. Through the port, Reed saw it. A monstrous, writhing mass of vines, tipped with serrated, snapping mouths. A stalker vine. It was methodically, patiently, trying to gnaw through the hull. "It's tasting us," Reed said, not with terror, but with the analytical calm of a commander assessing a new enemy. "Dr. Stone, what does this thing normally eat?" A pause. Then her voice sparked with realization. "Tunnel borers, subterranean megafauna. They generate immense geothermal signatures. It's hunting by heat." "Mills," Reed barked. "Vent all non-essential waste heat. Now. Make us cold, unappetizing." He then did the unthinkable. He ordered the shuttle's airlock cycled. "Beck, Torres, with me. Full environmental suits. We're not waiting to be digested." In orbit, Vex watched, mesmerized, as the human airlock opened. Instead of a panicked, fleeing mob, 3 figures emerged. They moved with a purposeful, tactical cadence that was alien to the chaotic violence of Corath. The lead human, Reed, raised a modified industrial laser, took careful aim not at the creature's many mouths, but at a thickened node at its base, and fired. The stalker vine convulsed, let out a steam whistle shriek, and went limp. They killed it, Kess whispered, disbelief flattening his voice. With a mining tool. But Reed wasn't finished. He and the others dragged the massive carcass back toward the shuttle, a grisly trophy. Let the others see. Reed's muffled voice came through a tapped drone feed. Let them learn the new rule. And they did. The other predators, drawn by the commotion, slowed their advance. The humans weren't behaving like prey. They were acting like a new apex species. By the end of that first brutal day, all 500 humans were on the ground. Not a single life lost. No evacuation request was sent. From Shuttle Alpha, Captain Reed filed his first report. Not a plea for help, but a status update of chilling simplicity. Landing phase complete. Colony establishment begins. In the plush silence of the Azure Witness, Ambassador Vex stared at the words on his screen. The first tremor of a terrible, dawning understanding slithered down his spine. He had not sent lambs to the slaughter. He had released wolves into a new hunting ground. And the wolves were not just surviving. They were getting comfortable. 3 weeks on Corath Prime, it was not a measure of time, but of metamorphosis. The scarred landing zone, once a tableau of nightmares, had been transformed. What began as a desperate perimeter defense had evolved into a settlement that seemed not so much built as grown. A strange and beautiful hybrid of human ingenuity and alien biology. The humans had not conquered their environment. They had commenced a dialogue with it, and the planet was beginning to answer. Chief Engineer Eris Mills stood in the heart of the settlement's first major structure, a workshop that had once been the nesting ground of acid spitters. The walls, now reinforced with a resin derived from the spitter's own neutralized secretions, glowed with a soft, ambient bioluminescence. Before him, suspended in a containment field, pulsed what they called a processor colony, a shimmering, metallic slurry of microorganisms harvested from a geothermal vent. It's not just breaking down the ore, Mills muttered to his assistant, Parker, his voice filled with reverence. It's curating it, sorting the rare earths with a precision our best centrifuges couldn't match. Zero energy input, zero waste. It just feeds. And in exchange, it gives us pure titanium, lanthanum, promethium. He shook his head. The Zephyrans dug here for months with plasma drills and got a 5% yield. We're getting 98. They were fighting the ground. We asked it for a favor. This was the emerging, incomprehensible truth of Corath Prime. The planet's infamous hostility was not mindless violence. It was a complex, planet-scale immune system, designed to identify and eliminate threats. The previous expeditions had triggered every alarm. They came with weapons, with digging machines, with a mindset of extraction and domination. They screamed parasite to the planet's senses, and it had reacted accordingly, with extreme prejudice. The humans, after their initial violent introduction, had done something radical. They had stopped fighting. They observed. They experimented. They offered gifts. Dr. Anya Stone discovered that the violent electrical storms, which previous surveys called atmospheric chaos, were actually rhythmic, pulsing along subterranean mineral veins. The planet was literally spotlighting its riches. When Mills's team used low-impact sonic taps to extract a small mineral sample, they left a common safely introducing refined carbon and purified silica in the borehole. The next day, the seam had widened, as if the planet itself had helped with the excavation. It's a feedback loop, Doctor said. Stone explained to Reed, her hands dancing over holographic data in the newly grown biolab, a dome of living photosensitive membrane. The flora and fauna respond to chemical and electromagnetic signals we emit. Stress hormones, adrenaline, aggressive electrical fields from our machinery. The Vrex were terrified. They broadcast fear like a beacon. The Rocklings were rigid, unyielding. They broadcast arrogance. We started broadcasting curiosity. Then, cooperation, and the response changed. The proof was everywhere. The stalker vines that had once attacked now formed dense, protective thickets at the settlement's edge, their snapping mouths turned outward. Scavenger organisms called glint beetles swarmed not to plunder, but to clean and polish human equipment, consuming corrosive residues and excreting a protective ceramic glaze. Farmer Lou, using seeds cross-pollinated with native spore carriers, grew crops in the dead soil that not only flourished, but glowed, their roots secreting compounds that stabilized the toxic substrate. Aboard the Azure Witness, Ambassador Vex watched this symphony of symbiosis with mounting dread. The surveillance feeds no longer showed a struggle for survival. They showed a renaissance. Population update, his aide Kess reported. The words tasting of ash. 547 human life signs. Explain the increase, Vex demanded, his silver skin dull with frustration. 3 live births, and immigration requests approved from their other colony ships. They're calling it, sir. Kess hesitated. They're calling Corath Prime the Garden. Vex's drink slipped from his hand, shattering on the deck. The Garden, the galaxy's most infamous death trap. Rebranded as paradise by the very beings sent there to perish. It was a profound, cosmic insult. His despair deepened with the next report. Captain Reed was requesting a live comm link. When the connection stabilized, Vex found himself staring not at a haggard survivor in a leaking bunker, but at a composed commander in a clean, well-lit office. Through a window behind Reed, Vex could see children playing under the amber light of the storm-filtered sun. Their laughter, a quiet counterpoint to the conversation. Ambassador Vex, Reed began, his tone polite, almost warm. Thank you for checking in. We wanted to file our 3-week progress report. Progress? Vex managed to echo, the word foreign. Remarkable progress, Reed affirmed, a genuine smile touching his eyes. The initial classifications were, with respect, profoundly mistaken. Corath Prime isn't hostile, it's selective. We've established full atmospheric processing, sustainable agriculture, and have begun resource extraction operations. The rare earth deposits are staggering. Within 6 months, we'll be the primary supplier for this entire sector. Vex felt the foundations of his understanding crumble. The dangers? The fatalities? Learning experiences, Reed said, with the calm of a master craftsman. We lost a survey drone to a crystalback predator. In studying the remains, we found the creature's digestive enzymes can refine hyperconductive polymers. We lost a drone, gained a revolution in computing. He leaned forward slightly. The key, Ambassador, was a shift in perspective. We stopped asking, how do we kill it, and started asking, what does it need and what can we offer in return? It turns out, Corath Prime needed a partner to help regulate its intense geochemical cycles. Our mining, counterintuitively, is providing that. The transmission ended, leaving Vex in a silence so loud It was deafening. He had not orchestrated a humiliation. He had handed humanity the keys to a kingdom of unimaginable wealth and power. 6 months slid by, measured on Corath Prime in harvests of glowing fruit, in the hum of living machinery, and in the steady, confident pulse of a growing community. The settlement was now a town, then a small city. Streets were paved with a resilient resin cultivated from a docile slime mold. Buildings were grown from guided crystal formations, their interiors lit by captured bioluminescence and warmed by geothermal symbionts. Dr. Stone stood at the border of the Dead Valley, a place the initial scans had declared devoid of even microbial life. Now, it was a forest of towering, pulsing energy willows. Their leaves, when gently harvested, could store electrical charge with near-perfect efficiency. A single grove powered the entire city. "It was never dead," she said into her recorder, her voice thick with emotion. "It was dormant, waiting for the right catalyst. Our introduction of specific Earth bacteria, combined with mineral nutrients we distilled from the acid rain, acted as a wake-up call. The planet had this potential locked within itself. It just needed a co-conspirator to unlock it." In the communications hub, specialist Maria Torres was inundated. The quiet trickle of immigration requests had become a flood. Messages poured in, not just from human colonies, but from fringe species of the Galactic Council, miners from hardy rock-dweller clans, botanists from the aquatic Selkath, even a delegation of Vrex, the species that had lost colonists to this very world. Their messages were all variations on a theme. How? Teach us. Torres crafted a standard reply, honed by months of practice. The application process is rigorous. It is not about physical strength or advanced technology. It is a psychological evaluation. You must unlearn conquest. You must embrace partnership. Corath Prime does not tolerate tenants. It accepts only symbionts. Some applicants understood. Most did not. A few council species, armed with the publicly shared and utterly misleading human schematics for low-impact mining, launched their own expeditions to other Class 15 worlds. Results were catastrophic. A Takrill mining guild attempted to settle on Searing Bastion. They triggered a planetary-scale, pyroclastic immune response within 72 hours. The survivors' transmissions were pure, undiluted horror. Back on the Azure Witness, Vex received these reports with a grim sense of vindication that quickly soured. The humans hadn't lied. Their techniques were real, but they were inseparable from the human mindset, a unique blend of audacious humility, stubborn optimism, and a deep-seated cultural narrative of taming frontiers. It wasn't a technology that could be copied. It was a philosophy that had to be lived. The final blow to Council certainty came with the completion of Project Aegis. Under Mills's direction, the humans had not built a shield generator. They had cultivated one. A massive, kilometers-wide mycelial network had been guided to grow in a geometric lattice beneath the settlement. This root shield didn't repel Corath's storms. It harmonized with them, absorbing the catastrophic electrical energy, filtering the acid rain, and stabilizing the tectonic stress. The planet's greatest weapons had been co-opted into its city's life support system. Vex was summoned to a live, encrypted council session. The faces of the representatives flickered before him, their usual composure shattered. They have created a biological Dyson tree around their city. Councillor Threx clicked, his mandibles quivering. They are selling stabilized rare earth elements at 1/10 of market price. They are gardening with Class 15 apex predators. Our economic models are collapsing, drone to harmonic synphone elder. Entire sectors are petitioning for trade deals directly with the Corath Protectorate, bypassing council channels entirely. Admiral Kor, a militaristic Valerian, projected a tactical overlay. Worse, their settlement is now a fortress. Not with guns, but with the planet itself. Any attacking force would have to contend with the focused wrath of an entire world acting in its own defense. Our simulations show total attrition. High Counselor Velerin, the de facto leader, fixed his multifaceted eyes on Vex. You created this situation, Ambassador. Your elegant solution has birthed a galactic superpower in a single standard year. We require a new solution. One that does not involve handing them more worlds. Defeated, Vex prepared for his final act, a personal inspection tour. He would go to the surface, witness this impossibility firsthand, and deliver the Council's new offer. A formal apology, a seat at the high table, relocation to a dozen safe core worlds, anything to curb their expansion. As his shuttle descended through Corath's now less turbulent skies, Vex prepared himself for a grim, triumphant human settlement, a harsh bastion of survival. What he saw through the viewport stole the breath from his respiratory vents. It was not a bastion. It was a masterpiece. A city of organic spires and flowing, living arches glittered under the eternal aurora. Gardens of impossible colors cascaded down terraces. Human children and small, six-legged furry creatures he didn't recognize played together in crystal-dusted plazas. The air on the shuttle's external sensors, once flagged as Category X hazard, now read as enhanced, high oxygen, trace beneficial alkaloids. Captain Reed greeted him at the landing pad, which was not metal, but a resilient, moss-like organism that cushioned their steps. Welcome, Ambassador, to New Athens. Vex could only stare. The arrogance of the name, claiming the legacy of Earth's ancient cradle of wisdom for this alien place, was overshadowed by its aptness. This was a place of learning, of art, of philosophy forged in an unthinkable crucible. How? The question was all Vex could muster, stripped of all diplomatic pretense. Reed led him to a balcony overlooking the city. You sent us here to break us, to show us we were small. But, Ambassador, humans have a history of being small. We were small on the African savanna, facing lions. Small on the Arctic ice, facing the cold. Small in wooden ships, facing the infinite ocean. Our greatness was never in being the strongest thing in the environment. It was in being the most adaptive, in finding the levers, the partnerships, the hidden agreements. Corath Prime wasn't our punishment. It was the first being in the galaxy to take us seriously enough to present a real challenge. We owe it a debt. He pointed to a distant range, where the terrifying crystalbacks now moved in slow, peaceful herds, their backs glistening with cultivated energy-harvesting lichens. They're not livestock, they're colleagues. We protect them from underground lava flows they can't sense. They give us access to the crystals that grow on their spines. Everyone benefits. The entire planet benefits. Its entropy is decreasing. It's becoming more alive because we're here. Vex's mission, his offer of apology and relocation, died in his throat. It would be an insult. He was not looking at colonists clinging to survival. He was looking at the proud, rightful citizens of a living world. The power in the room did not emanate from Reed or from weapons. It emanated from the quiet, humming certainty of the city itself, from the palpable sense of being in the presence of something that had achieved perfect dynamic balance. He had come to assess a problem. He was standing inside the solution, and it was more terrifying than any warfleet. One galactic standard year, a heartbeat in the life of the ancient council, but an eternity of transformation on Corath Prime. The city of New Athens was no longer a settlement. It was an organ, beating in rhythm with the planet's fiery heart. Its spires, grown from guided crystal and resilient mycelium, pierced the now gentler storms, channeling their energy into shimmering, subterranean lakes of light that powered a civilization. Captain Elias Reed, no longer a captain, but the elected governor of the Corath Protectorate, stood in the heart of the Celestial Forum, a chamber whose dome was a single, vast, living membrane displaying the real-time dance of the planet's magnetosphere. Before him, the representatives of 12 new human Deathworld colonies waited, their holographic images flickering with the energy of pioneers. "The reports from Hellforge Prime are conclusive," announced the stern-faced commander from New Titan, her image backed by the glow of molten rivers. "The lithivore cultures have stabilized the volcanic plains. Yield is at 400% of projections. Stormbreak's energy harvest is online," added her counterpart from the floating archipelagos of a gas giant's turbulent moon. "We're feeding power back to the atmospheric processors. The storms are calming. The natives, the sky mantas, are showing us new harvesting patterns." One by one, they reported. Deep water, silent furnace, gravity's embrace. Each a Class 15 world, each now a thriving, symbiotic human colony. They had not replicated New Athens. They had found their own unique symphonies with their hostile hosts. The common thread was not a technology, but a creed. Listen, adapt, cooperate, offer value. Reed listened, a profound solemnity settling over him. The Galactic Council's cruel joke had unlocked a fundamental truth about humanity and the universe. The greatest treasures were not hidden in safe places. They were guarded by the most formidable challenges, and the price of admission was not superior firepower, but empathetic intelligence. "They're calling it the symbiosis doctrine back on Earth," Dr. Anya Stone said, stepping to his side, a data slate in her hand. Her eyes held the quiet awe of a scientist who had witnessed a paradigm shatter. "Universities are overhauling their exobiology departments. The military is retooling into first contact engineering corps." "We've changed our own species, Elias. We remembered what we are," Reed replied softly, watching a hologram of children from Gravity's Embrace, a 2.5G world, playing a complex game with local rock skippers, creatures that could punch through steel. "We are the animal that makes friends with the wolf, domesticates the grass, and talks to the stars. They sent us to a monster, and we discovered it was just lonely and misunderstood and incredibly powerful. All it wanted was a good neighbor." His reverie was broken by Specialist Torres. "Sir, the Council delegation shuttle is on final approach. Ambassador Vex is leading it. Their message indicates they are coming to formalize relations." A ripple of wry smiles moved through the forum. "Formalize," Mills grunted from his station, where he was monitoring the root shield's nutrient flow. "That's a fancy word for surrender." Reed held up a hand. "No gloating. We meet them as we've become. Not as conquerors, as hosts." Ambassador Vex's descent was a journey through his own obsolescence. His shuttle, a pinnacle of Council engineering, felt clumsy and loud compared to the silent, organic glide paths used by the local air rafts. Where he expected the blighted hellscape of the initial drone footage, he saw curated wilderness, Canyons where acid falls were now harnessed in elegant silicate channels, their runoff feeding brilliant algal blooms. Forests of predatory plants now standing in orderly, pollinator-rich rows, their fruits harvested by gentle, multi-limbed drones that seemed more like living creatures than machines. The shuttle settled on a landing pad of resilient moss that absorbed the sound. The air that cycled into the cabin was not the filtered, sterile product of a life support system, but the rich, complex bouquet of a thriving world. Ozone, alien blossoms, damp soil. It was alive, and it was safe. Reed greeted him, not in a military uniform, but in simple, durable garments grown from plant fibers and spider silk analogs. Ambassador Vex, welcome back to Corath Prime. I trust the journey was less eventful than your last visit might have suggested. Vex, his silver skin reflecting the kaleidoscope of colors from the living city, struggled for words. The diplomatic speech he had rehearsed, full of cautious praise and carefully veiled offers of council oversight, evaporated. It is not what I expected, Governor Reed. It never is, Reed smiled and gestured for him to follow. Come, let me show you what partnership looks like. The tour was a silent, devastating elegy for Galactic Council supremacy. Vex saw schools where human children learned chemical signal languages alongside standard galactic. He saw hospitals where symbiotic microbes, cultured from deadly local pathogens, were used to regenerate tissue and neutralize toxins. He visited the Heartwood, the central processor of the city, a vast, cathedral-like space where the roots of the great shield tree converged. In its center pulsed a gentle, intelligent light, a collective consciousness formed from the neural networks of millions of guided fungi. The planet's own biological internet, now interfacing with human AI. It helps us manage the global ecosystem, Reed explained quietly. We tell it our needs. More stable weather in the agricultural zones, a slight shift in mineral deposition here. It tells us what it needs, a dispersal of certain spores there, a subtle vibration to ease tectonic pressure here. We negotiate. We compromise. Vex stared, the concept too vast to immediately comprehend. Humanity wasn't just living on a death world. It had become the planet's nervous system, its steward, and its voice. The power dynamics were inverted. The Council didn't need to worry about a human fleet. They needed to worry about offending an entire world that had adopted humanity as its favorite appendage. The formal meeting was held in a quiet grove, under the branches of a massive, peaceful stalker vine, its flowers now blooming with soft, edible fruit. Vex delivered the Council's new position, a full apology, a permanent seat on the High Council, generous trade agreements, and an offer to help relocate the brave pioneers of Corath to more hospitable core worlds as a reward for their ordeal. When he finished, the silence was filled only by the hum of insects and the distant laughter of children. Reed looked at him with an expression of profound pity. Ambassador, we thank the Council for its apology. It is accepted. The seat is appreciated. We will send a delegate. The trade agreements we can discuss. He paused, picking one of the vine's fruits and offering it to Vex. But we are not leaving. This is not an ordeal to be survived and left behind. This is our home. Corath Prime chose us. We chose it. That bond is not transactional. It is familial. He leaned forward, his eyes holding the hard-won wisdom of a year spent dancing with apocalypse. You see, you made one fundamental error. You judged us by our origin world, a Class 7 garden. You thought it made us soft, but you misread the data. A garden isn't a place of ease. A garden is a place of intense, constant, creative negotiation. You must understand the soil, the seasons, the insects, the blight, the drought. You must prune, you must water, you must defend. You must sacrifice some plants to save others. A human who tends a garden is not practicing leisure. They are practicing a gentle, persistent form of warfare and diplomacy with nature itself. Corath Prime, it's just a more expressive garden. The truth hit Vex with the force of a physical blow. The Council's civilizations had evolved in harsh, static environments. They hardened themselves against their worlds. Humanity had evolved in a dynamic, fecund, deep primate, negotiable environment. They had evolved to work with their world. Of course, they excelled here. This was their oldest skill, amplified to a planetary scale. And the other Deathworlds? Vex asked, his voice hoarse. Open, Reed said simply, to any species that passes the evaluation. Not a test of strength, a test of empathy, creativity, and the willingness to offer before you take. We have Vrex applicants in the next cohort. They're eager to try again, this time with a different mindset. The negotiations that followed were unlike any in galactic history. There were no threats, no posturing over fleet sizes or weapon yields. The human bargaining position was unassailable, because it was not based on what they could destroy, but on what they could create. They offered the symbiosis framework to the Council, a set of principles and starter cultures for taming hostile biomes. In return, they asked for nothing but open borders for cultural and scientific exchange, and a permanent cessation of the Council's patronizing guardianship over humanity. In the depths of space, the Council observation ship, Azure Witness, turned for home, its sensors filled with the radiant, peaceful image of New Athens. On its bridge, Ambassador Vex composed his final report, a document that would end an era. We sought to humble them with a monster, he dictated, the words tasting of ashes and revelation. Instead, they tamed it, not with a whip, but with an open hand. They did not break against Corath Prime. They completed a circuit the universe had left open. Their strength is not in defiance, but in integration. They do not build empires upon worlds. They build partnerships with them. This is not a new political threat. It is a new evolutionary paradigm, and they are inviting the galaxy to join them. Recommendation: accept their terms, study their methods, learn from them. For in trying to show humanity its place, we have been shown our future, and it is not one of domination, but of delicate, terrifying, and infinitely productive collaboration. A year to the day after the first shuttle landed, Governor Reed stood again in the original landing zone. A monument stood there now, not to human victory, but to partnership. It was a fused sculpture of starship alloy and Corathian living crystal, growing slowly, year by year. Around him, the city breathed. A young girl ran up to him, her hands cupped around a glowing spark puppy, a creature once documented as an electrostatic parasite. "Governor, look, she followed me home." Reed knelt. "And did you ask her if she wanted to come?" The girl nodded seriously. "I showed her my light box. She liked the vibration." He smiled. That was the lesson, written in a child's simple action. You don't take, You offer. You attract. He looked up at the swirling, beautiful aurora that was now Corath Prime's permanent sky. The storms were still there, but they were part of the planet's circulatory system now, regulated and purposeful. The monsters were still there, but they were citizens, with roles and rights. The humans were still there, but they were something new. Not masters, not guests, partners. The Galactic Council had given humanity a death sentence. In return, humanity had given the galaxy a new definition of life. They had looked into the heart of a world designed to kill them, and seen not an enemy, but a potential ally waiting to be understood. And in that understanding, they had found not just a home, but their true purpose among the stars. To be the gardeners of the impossible, the listeners in the void, the friends to monsters, and the healers of broken worlds. The experiment was over. The future had begun.